Hello, listeners. Mallory Wilsey here, Chief Producer of the Enrollify Network, and I want to take just a quick moment to tell you about another show on our podcast network that I think you'll love. Mission Admissions cuts through the noise in college admissions and recruitment. Host Jeremy Tiers brings a fresh perspective, packing each episode with straight talk advice, tips, and strategies from a mix of pros inside and outside higher ed. One of the things I love most about the show is how Jeremy often brings voices from outside the industry to share perspectives and practices that can be applied to the work that marketers and enrollment professionals like you do every day. You can subscribe to the show by visiting podcast.enrollify.org or just search Mission Admissions wherever you get your podcasts.
As college marketers and communicators, we work with stakeholders across the entire institution, from presidents and cabinet members, faculty, program managers, fundraisers, student services. We see it all. And all of them come from different backgrounds and have varied understanding of the role marketing communications play in the success of their institution. So, today, with the help of my very talented peers, we will discuss the top things community college leaders need to know to get the best of marketing and communications. First, we have Keith Paul, the Chief Marketing Officer at Northern Essex Community College, with over 25 years of experience spanning both the public and private sectors. And we also have Dan Baum, the Executive Director of Strategic Communications at Anne Arundel Community College. Dan brings over 30 years of experience and is also a certified life coach and instructor. I think you'll find this episode valuable, so let's get this started. Welcome to The Hidden Gem, your go-to podcast that shines a spotlight on the strategic role of marketing and communications in shaping the future of community colleges. I'm your host, Maya Demishkevich, CMO at Carroll Community College. Every week, I sit down with community college leaders and industry experts to unpack strategies that work. We'll discuss practical insights and success stories to help you elevate your institution's profile and achieve your strategic goals. Tune in to amplify your community college's success, one conversation at a time. The Hidden Gem is part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher education professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal favorites linked in the show notes below. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com. And let's get started. So, welcome to the Hidden Gem podcast, Dan and Keith.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
I asked Keith and Dan to think about what are the top things they would love more community college leaders and presidents to know about, specifically as it relates to marketing and communication. And they put a list together, and we'll go through this list together and we'll talk about their ideas and share some examples, because I do think that we can expect our leaders to know everything about marketing and to be experts. I think it's on us to help them understand the role we play in the success of our institutions, and demonstrate how we can help them amplify and reach their goals faster, more efficiently. So, what would you like more leaders to know about or understand?
Well, first off, since we work in academia, I'm going to start with some definitions. When you said leaders, what I was thinking was anyone who's leading a project, a committee, a constituency group, department, right up to the president. So any one of those people could have some kind of marketing or communication needs. So then I would go to the second definition, and that is what is marketing? I think in today's world, we tend to use the word interchangeably to mean promotion. And that's what a lot of people mean. They say, I want some marketing. What they really mean is they want some promotion. But if you're in the profession as we are, it's much, much broader than that. I would say in today's world, it really is the experience, the entire experience you have with an organization. So that might be the audience. Who are they? What do they already know about you? What are their expectations and what would they benefit from? What is the service you offer, or perhaps even the product? In the case of the college, it's largely the services we offer. How do you price it? And what is the way you get it in their hands? Is how accessible is it? So when you think of it that way, it's kind of everything. And most people don't see it that way. So when a fellow community college leader comes to us and says they just want X, and we step back and start asking a lot of questions like, well, who's the audience and what do they need? And they start saying, why are you asking all that? Because it's the bigger context. And you can't come up with the right message if you don't have all those other pieces in place. So that's what I wish more community college leaders understood about the profession.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned or you contrast marketing with promotion, Dan, because it makes me think of. I wasn't a marketing major, and I actually advise students to not major in marketing. So sorry if I offend anybody, but the 4 Ps, right? Product, place, promotion, and price, right? Those are what we're getting at. When Dan says why or what do you need that for, or what's the use, who's the audience. We don't think of those things, when we get a lot of requests. Well, we do, but our campus clients don't get a lot of, don't have that perspective. They just know that they want a flyer, right? They just want an email. They just want some fancy hoodie, right? They're not thinking of like how it's going to be used or the impact it's going to have overall.
Well, if I can give you an example, like last night, literally, I wanted to get a different interface for my television because streaming is what's going on these days, and we have all these different apps. So I went to the store and I bought a Roku. When you look at that product, first of all, the packaging is beautiful. They must have taken a leaf from Apple's design because it's just really beautifully packaged. You had a number of different pricing options, but I went with the middle one, which is all of $40. I came home, when I opened it up, it said 5 steps, 5 simple steps, and they mean it. It's not, 1A, 1B, 1C. One of those steps is plug it in. So we're not talking complicated. It was a matter of minutes and I had it up and running, and it's so easy to use. None of that has anything to do with promotion. I didn't see a single ad. I'm not even sure I visited their website. So all of those pieces make up marketing. And as you said, Keith, and this is, I'm sure, what's being taught in the classrooms at our colleges is the 4 Ps. So they have a phenomenal product, very easy to use, beautifully packaged. It's a reasonable price. And it not only does it easy to get your hands on it, but when you actually use it, how accessible it is, how simple it is to use. And that's well before we even talk about any promotion around it. I've never seen a Roku ad. I don't know if they advertise. I have no idea.
Yeah, no, they have great word of mouth. And thinking about the product, one thing that we're very active doing at my college is knocking down barriers that for whatever reason exist. And we don't care why they exist. It could be, somewhere along the line, it cost us X dollars to do some sort of, testing. So, okay, that was covering the fee back then of what it was. We've since operationalized it. So why are we still charging the fee, right? Can we get rid of that fee? And does that help somebody come in and get their PLA credit easier without having to worry about $100 when, the person running the test is like, well, it's only $100. I was like, for you, it's only $100. But for that student who the $100 is a legitimate barrier, it's we think differently about those things. It's realigning processes and calendars and communicating those things because the world expects the Amazon level of customer service, right? They want to go get something, buy something, and it show up right away. And in my institution, we're not good at that, right? It's for those familiar with Southern New Hampshire University. If you go to their website right now and fill out any inquiry form, do it. Look at your watch because they will call you within a minute.
See, and I would argue who's asking the questions that you're asking, Keith, because who else at the college but the marketing team would be asking questions like, well, why are we charging $100 if we've operationalized it? And you bring the perspective of saying, people are not just looking at us compared to other colleges. They're looking at us compared to Amazon. They're looking at us in the world they live in. Who else is asking that question? So that's one of the expertise. That's a type of expertise that we bring to the table that others around the college aren't necessarily bringing.
Yeah, and that's the joy of, like, we all know each other through NCMPR, and that's the joy of that organization in particular, is we get to share with each other, and we get to find out how somebody's knocking it out of the park, or why somebody is struggling with somebody, and just giving them tips. And there's so much I've learned through that group and through you guys. And then just in my own career, I bring half my career was in the corporate world, where I had 7-figure budgets to just play with. I take all those learnings here. While I wish I had 7-figure budgets to play with, but I carry those lessons with me, and how to be scrappy and how to do things. It's just looking at that breadth of experience. I think that's key. Especially at the community college level, we're not going to be traditionally we haven't been amazingly funded, but I'm here because of the mission of the institution and what it means to me personally.
So, what I'm hearing you say is marketing should be involved early on in the process, and that usually doesn't happen. People come to us once they have a product developed, the program almost ready to launch, saying, "Hey, we have 2 weeks. Can you get us students?"
Oh, I'd love 2 weeks.
Right? We can do anything in 2 weeks, but I think it's super important to understand the earlier you get marketing involved, and specifically even before you start thinking about the product or the program you want to launch, marketing needs to be in those meetings trying to figure out who is the target audience, what is the positioning for this particular program, what are the differentiators that we should be highlighting in our messaging and our advertising, how can we address our audience's needs in this particular product. There's so many nuances
Yeah.
that we can help identify, bring to light, and make it ultimately a much more successful program.
Yeah, and the audiences don't have to be
Yeah,
students, right?
right.
There's a project that we've done here that I'm so proud of, and it just won a case award, by the way. It's we For those marketers who've been responsible for putting together strategic plan documents, right? They're usually very glossy, very fancy, die cuts, vellum, all the color in the world, fancy, blah blah blah. We launched ours last year, our current one last year. We didn't do one of those documents, and instead, and it was by my team's behest, we pushed and pushed and said, well, we need to make. And my boss was supportive of this. That's kind of the key in that. Is she wanted a utilitarian document for the strategic plan. So we ended up coming up with something on heavy paper, wire bound, so that people can erase, they can write, it's a workbook. It's not a strategic plan, it's a workbook, so that employees can track directly what their day-to-day and what their strategic work, how all that maps back to the college's strategic goals. It's a groundbreaking thing. I've never seen anything like that. My boss has never seen anything like that. Our president hasn't seen anything like that anywhere else in higher ed. And we did that on purpose because we wanted employees to feel connected to the plan. We wanted employees to recognize what they do every day, how it impacts our students. And by extension, when I work with campus clients who are requesting marketing materials or strategies or whatnot, one of the first things I say to them is, are we treating our students like the kings and queens that they are? If you're distributing photocopies of photocopies, you're wrong, right? You need to do something nice. You need to do something great. You need to wow and woo these students. You need to make them feel like they made the right decision. The stigma around community colleges, our students tend to be, usually working, usually with kids, usually juggling a bunch of things in their lives versus, I'm going to go bring a 30 rack into my dorm this weekend, right? They don't do, we don't have that. And, we have students who are very dedicated to improving their lives. So what we need to do is make sure that they feel that they can succeed and that they made the right decision. And I think marketing plays a huge role in that.
Yeah, you just hit on at least two of things on my list. I mean, one is that what you just said is that design matters, and I would like more community college leaders to be discerning as consumers. We're all consumers of information and such. So when I said like the packaging on Roku was beautiful, start noticing those things. And because there is a stigma with community colleges, our team has made a goal, and I'm sure both of you and all of our colleagues around the country have the goal of nothing should come out of the college that reflects anything but the excellence that we have here at the college, we don't want to reinforce 13th grade. So if you're just making a copy of a copy, you've just reinforced it. We need
Yeah.
to appear as competitive as we
Hmm.
are. So I think that would be the first thing, is that design matters, and take that seriously. The other is, and what you were talking about with the workbook, I think that beautifully demonstrates, is that strategy comes first. So we want to begin, I'm going to steal from Stephen Covey, we want to begin with the end in mind. And so if your president's goal was, this is meant to be useful, we don't want it to sit on a shelf. Well, there's your strategy, and you're able to then turn around and say, well, we want it to be a working document. That's why we're going to turn it into a workbook. So if you can ask the question, what does success look like? And how will we measure this? What's the end? Then the marketing team can start bringing its experience and its talents and say, okay, so now that we know what problem we're trying to solve, we can sink our teeth into it.
Yeah, no, perfect. It reminds me of, going back to corporate days, using organizations like IDEO to do a lot of design thinking. It's, just one simple question you can ask instead of, just straight up, what would you like this to be? It's maybe reframe it as, what would have to be true, right? So it gets some more creative thinking, where it's not so tied to preconceived notions. You give yourself that space and grace to brainstorm and to think a little bit outside yourself. Because you might be able to easily see other means of getting something done, but at the end of the day, it should be something different and growth oriented. And to Dan's point, what is the end goal that we're trying to achieve?
Hey, it's Maya Demishkevich. Exciting news. I will be at the Engage Summit in Raleigh on June 25th and 26th, and I would love to meet you there. Hosted by Element 451, the Engage Summit is your roadmap for AI readiness in higher education. Sessions will focus on cutting edge AI applications that are reshaping student outreach, enhancing staff productivity, and offering deep insights into ROI. It is a dynamic blend of theory and practice, and it isn't your typical conference. Think of it as a 2-day masterclass where marketers and enrollment managers come together to learn how to respond to the radical changes in AI and its transformative potential. Forget yawning through the sessions or clearing out your inbox. This event will provide inspirational programming, truly tactical takeaways, and best in class networking opportunities. Oh, and the best part, the Engage Summit is incredibly affordable. Use the discount code Enrollify50 and you can register for just $99. So join me and many of my fellow Enrollify Network creators at the Engage Summit this June. Learn more and register at engage.element451.com. We can't wait to see you there. Yeah, so both of you hit on another point that I have on my list is measuring marketing and communication efforts and demonstrating that we are essential for revenue driving for the institution, right? So we are partners in enrollment, in driving enrollment for the college, fundraising, all of it. So it's important to realize how we can contribute and be equal partners with our stakeholders across the college to drive revenue and not just be considered a cost center, because we're not. We're an investment, not a cost.
Absolutely. Operative word there for me is partner.
Yeah.
That's something I really would like more community college leaders to acknowledge, is that they have their expertise. We can't possibly know what they know. We're not going to know the ins and outs of financial aid. We don't know the details of biology in that class. They bring their expertise. We're going to bring our expertise. So let's partner up. Let's collaborate. When we're able to collaborate, we're going to do our best work. And I would add to that, we're going to be direct in that way. We're probably going to say, is that a good idea? Is that really what's needed? How is that helping that audience? And we're gonna be tough, I think, in that respect. But it's to get a better result. So I think the one thing that I would want us to all agree on is that we have a shared interest, and we all want success. We want our students to be successful. We want our communities to thrive. We want the college to do well, and on and on and on. It might be at a tactical level, like closing the equity gap. It might be at a broad level, like transforming lives for the better. But let's agree on those things, but then we'll roll up our sleeves and we can disagree on some of the strategies and stuff. But let us bring our expertise. If you bring your expertise, when we collaborate, we're going to do great work.
We were all mentioning, like, what's the contribution to revenue, right? How are we driving enrollment and those kinds of things? Is I'm starting to think through a dashboard that I can use at cabinet level here, just to show the volume of activity that comes through my office. And for January alone, like, I'm just starting to piece this together. We had 133 distinct projects that we worked on for other folks on campus. We generated almost 600 leads for admissions. So it's just measuring those things in that way so that folks can think a little bit differently. It's like, oh, okay, so Marcom is contributing this much to the enrollment pipeline. Okay, what does that mean, and how are we servicing those students? The number of jobs we're doing. When we launched our strategic plan on my intake form, I added a drop-down menu. The first question people have to ask when they submit a job to Marcom is, which goal of the strategic plan does this map to? And for the first couple months, folks really struggled with that. They did not know how to answer that question. And a lot of times I would just reply, it's like, well, go take a look at the website, and whatever you're asking for, just find out, just look. There's only 5. You can figure it out which one this most applies to. And folks have gotten better at that, and it's just change. I think in almost every job in my career, I've been at some level working as a change agent. And even here, inheriting a great team, inheriting a team that was already very well respected by the college and doing amazing work, there was still a ton of change that needed to happen at the college. And in the face of that change, my boss had reminded me. She said, Keith, Lane, when he became president, replaced somebody who's here decades. When I became VP of advancement, I replaced somebody who's here 40 years. You're replacing Ron, who's here almost 30 years. So there's been a lot of change just in leadership. So folks are wary of that, right? Even though it's people who have been here a long time and retired, it's not that people were fired or there was some reduction in force or whatever. It was just natural turnover. But that's still, folks still need to acclimate to our new styles. And, as I've been here, 18 months, I've had feedback from folks who I trust on campus. And they said, well, Keith, you tend to be direct, and people interpret that as hostile. I was like, oh, interesting. So no, that's important feedback.
Or as
for
someone told me when I started 12 years ago, you're like a bull in a china shop.
But marketing is not a slow thing, right? You have to be able to move quickly. So that's where part of my directness comes from, is I need quick answers. This isn't something where I'm asking somebody on campus for, a certain data set. And, I would expect to get it in a couple days tops, when, a month could go by sometimes where I'd be like, hey, hello, you got that for me? But the directness, when I'll say to folks, like, they'll ask for something. If they ask for something ridiculous, I'll just flat out say no, right? But followed up with a why. What's your goal, right? And usually I can flip that into something else that's more useful and more impactful. But it's that level of, I don't know, directness or honesty or even my irreverence that people don't know how to react to in the moment, right? Over time, the one person who does give me this feedback regularly, she says, it took me 6 weeks after you started here to learn how to speak Keith. But once I figured you out, we have an amazing relationship. But it's just my nature of working in the corporate world, where you have to move quickly, right? And there's a book that I can't even remember if this book is actually a real thing or not. It's become more mythical than anything. Is supposedly out of IBM, some book, Fail Quickly, something to that effect. I've never read it. I just keep hearing about it. I keep talking about it, but I like the idea anyway. Is fail quickly, right? If you're going to do something, last summer we relaunched our website, and we continue to work on it, right? We have a day 2 list that we're finally getting through, 6, 7, 8 months later. But I tell folks on campus all the time, is perfect is the enemy of good. We are perfectly happy and satisfied to launch if something is 80% done, if that's what it means to get it done, right? If you're going to focus on getting it perfect, what's perfect, right? That's a very subjective thing. just get it done. And in terms of the website, or in terms of even printed collateral, you can always change it.
Hmm.
Once again, Keith has baked in about four or
I know.
five different things in there that I mean, I'm like picking out, okay, well, I think you started, one was with measurement, and
I'm all over the place.
you had mentioned that, Maya, is what are you measuring? I think some leaders would want to say the real end game, let's say enrollment. But as Keith
Hmm.
pointed out, our piece of that. So, what is our piece of that? Ours would be driving leads to the website or to the admissions office, or that's all goes to strategy. But there's so many other pieces along the way that gets you to someone in the classroom. So let's all look at our pieces along the pipeline. So I think what are you measuring? But the other thing that struck me and what you started with, Keith, was resources, and that's something that uh, community college leaders really should take a look at. I know that, as you mentioned, we're very active in our national advocacy group, constituency group, NCMPR, and we meet colleagues that have very few people in their department or very small budgets. I work at a fairly large community college, so we have a fairly large team and good sized budget. But even the budget itself, I don't think there is a true industry standard, but I've heard somewhere in the 2 to 3% of total operating budget. That is far more than what we get. I think we get half to 3/4 of 1% of the operating budget. So I think it's fair for leaders to really look at, well, what are the resources and how much are we investing? As you said, Maya, it's an investment. It's not a cost
Hmm.
center. It's an investment.
Yeah, no, that's it. And I'm lucky. We're not the biggest campus in Massachusetts. I think our biggest is in Boston, and some to the tune of 20,000 students. We are maybe 25% of that size wise, but I'm still blessed with a large team.
Mm.
It's full of specialists in their roles, right? So, and they're amazing people. So I get to sit on my CMO perch and be strategic and sit and listen and chat things through with cabinet members on what are the big institutional priorities. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, how does marketing add value to this? How do we get the message out? I used the strategic plan example earlier. But I'm also looking at things. We're unique in Massachusetts, and I think largely anywhere, is our regional, call it workforce assistance board, whatever.
Mhm.
Here in Massachusetts, people conflate it with the unemployment office. It's different. That's at the state level. This is at the regional level. We're the fiscal agent for it, and that's very different, right? So if somebody's on unemployment, in theory, the state will pay for training, right? I.e., a certificate or maybe even an associate degree. As part of their, if they choose to do some re-education. Uh, we're lucky in that, right? And we have two campuses, both in gateway cities. One is extremely Hispanic in population, mostly from the Dominican Republic, and we also oversee a nonprofit that does amazing work in that community. So I'm always trying to plug in how we involve those folks. How do we create a 360-degree view of what we're doing, right? We have an active alumni board. We have an active foundation board. Our trustees are amazing, right? It's for the past couple of years. My boss, the VP of Advancement, she's been here, probably twice as long as I've been here. But we've had already consecutive record-breaking fundraising years, right? The past couple of years, and that's another thing that community colleges or the stereotype is community colleges can't fundraise. Like, well, no, we're doing it. Since she's been here, we've established two, and we're working on our third $1 million promise program, so that early college students who come to us from these communities can continue on for free, right? It's so easy, but it's how does marketing play a role in all of this? It's telling the story, it's plugging it in everywhere else on campus, and helping folks know about it, be aware of it, how they can leverage it, how they can talk about it from their perspective, right? There's a lot of angles to all of these things, and that's kind of why we should be the hub of a lot of activity on campus.
I totally agree, and I think that's what you're speaking to is really validating why marketing needs to be at the table. Is because we're going to bring a very wide perspective. We're going to
Yeah.
see the whole. Not only do we see the whole picture from services right on through to promotion, but we're going to see all these different audiences. Most of the people on campus are going to interact with a more limited number of audiences. Admissions, maybe not so much, but even admissions is not going to be dealing with alumni or for fundraising and things like that. So we're going to have a really broad perspective of all the stakeholders. It's almost become a joke in our department that sometimes we'll get people to around the table and we want to say, have you all met each other? Like, do you know each other? Because we're out and about in both in the community and on campus, getting to know all these different stakeholders. So that also argues for why marketing should be so involved, is because we bring that broad perspective.
Yeah, and I carry with me. So one of my first corporate jobs, I was at EMC. It's now part of Dell, but at the time there was a new chief marketing officer. At the same time I joined the company, and his mantra was, "Marketing is a contact sport." It's like, get out and about with your colleagues. Don't just hide out in marketing. Go talk to the engineers. Go talk to the technology people. Go talk to the finance people. It's just really get to know how the message needs to get out that will benefit customers. And
Mhm.
same thing at the community college level. Our students are our customers, and we need to treat them that way. So we need to give them those amazing experiences, and we need to be able to communicate fully the value that we provide.
Exactly. These are all great points. So I'll go back to what Dan said about being at the table, right? And listening to what leadership's priorities are, what they're planning, what they focus on. Because very often, what happens if marketing and communication is not at the table, the information doesn't get to us until it's too late, or it gets to us in a way that may not be accurate. And then we have
Mm-hmm.
to piece those things together to say, what is really true, what should we get out, and not only it extends the timeline when the message will get out, but it's a lot of back and forth. So this communication flow and immediacy of information is critical for us being able to support our institution.
Yeah. Well, and it's that access. So
Yes.
if you as the marketing leader at your college does not have a seat at the table, do your darndest to advocate for one. If you're not sitting with your cabinet, if you don't have regular access to your president, or you don't report to your president, uh, do whatever you can. Advocate, 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 and we're happy to help you with tips. I'm lucky. I sit on cabinet, so I hear all these things. I'm lucky that I have a wonderful president whom, if I have a question, I can just go to him and ask that question. I'm also lucky that my PR director has a standing meeting with the president. So we're very plugged in. And I know just through my interactions with my colleagues across the country, not everybody is that lucky.
It's
And
important.
I
It's
think,
important. I mean, we're equally blessed. Our president, Dr. Lindsay, is very supportive of our team. I have a direct line to her and to the VPs and sit on cabinet as well. But even so, that said, and this is no disrespect to them collectively or individually, it doesn't mean that marketing is top of mind to be involved when new initiatives are being evaluated, that type of thing, because
yeah,
they're not necessarily seeing what we're talking about is how integral marketing is to all different pieces,
yeah,
and yet they're extremely supportive of what we do and how we do it. So I think there is a balancing act there, that even if you have a direct line, that understanding this bigger context that we're talking about, which those of us in the profession live and breathe every day. So there is a little bit of difference there. I was going to add that something you said earlier, Keith, that sparked for me, and that is that things are always changing. You talked about like the changes on your campus, and that's something that I think marketing professionals really appreciate, is that things are always evolving. It might be the media. So some people may be thinking of an older time when they come to us and say they want a news release, and we look and go, the media has been gutted, right? Like we're not really sure how we're going to get their attention with just that news release. So we're going to need to do a little more work on that. The way the world has become so much more digital, of course, there's life events like COVID. So we're going to be looking at that context, but we're also going to be continually learning, how do you communicate in that kind of environment? How do you function in that kind of environment? We
yeah,
now have this big change for all of us where we have a hybrid working environment and a hybrid teaching environment. And that's very different than it was 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And we're trying to understand that and see as that evolves, what is the marketplace? Because we're going to refer to language like that. We know it's our community, we know it's our students, but we're going to say, what is the market telling us? What do they want? What do they need? And we're going to be constantly studying that, learning that, and always growing.
And I think another important point to add to what you just said, Dan, is the fragmentation of channels, the continuously growing target audiences. So not only the media changes, but how people consume information changes. So we constantly need to be on top of it, making sure that they get information in the right way at the right time, and it's targeted to specifically what they're looking for. And of course, that goes back to resources. How can a small team do that? It's very challenging. Like, I have a good sized team for community colleges, and even for us, it is a challenge to get those messages out. It is a challenge to stay on top and constantly learn. Most of my professional development is outside of my work. I'm constantly reading, staying on top of trends, because I just don't have time to do it at work, because it's just so much.
Can I ask a question? I'm curious for the two of
Yeah.
you. If someone's listening to this, they're hearing all this and saying, okay, how can I be a better partner? So you're telling me I should be a partner, etc. What would be your answer to how someone in a community college can be a better partner with their marketing team?
Coming to us early, obviously, that's the thing that I harp on the most here is I can do so much more for you a month ago than today, right? It's there's the nature of marketing and how we can promote, and if you're especially if you're having an event, you know, I like to use the analogy of are you married or have you ever been to a wedding? When did those invitations go out? Okay, right? It just it's a little it's not a little it's a lot flippant, but it gets people to stop and think. It's like, oh, right. But I think it's also being willing to work with your manager, with your finance people, to work as smart as you can to avoid working hard. And there's a couple simple things, and I'm a shill for this company because I love them so much. Is if you're not using merit pages, you're wrong, right? It's just a nice product that helps you do more with less in terms of press releases, media management, student announcements, social media, all that stuff. It just helps. A tool like Canva or Mark helps. If you can get all that stuff set up to put the guardrails around your brand and let folks do things on their own, right? That will take a lot of the pressure off your team. Anything you can come up with that takes the pressure off your team, any of that mundane everyday stuff that is really bottlenecking your efforts. And I use my last job as example. Even though I was in the leadership role in marketing, I still was a doer, right? So I wasn't doing much strategic work, which was just the nature of the size of the job and the team and all that. And, it was a great experience. Here I get to be more strategic and I get to think of things like Merit or like Canva or like, all these different tools to help us work smarter, and being plugged in with our alumni folks. We had a great year with one particular alum. For any listeners in the Boston area or anywhere really, because it's an iHeart station, so you can fire up the iHeart app and listen, is the Billy and Lisa Morning Show on KISS 108 in Boston. One of our alumni is one of the hosts of the show. I had happened to ask one of our deans for a list of cool student or alumni or faculty stories. And she gave me an email with probably 15 topics, and I was like, "Are you holding out on me?" It's like, this is gold. And his name is Justin. Justin happened to be on that list. So the alumni folks did a feature story about him, right? Just starting from the angle, he's an alum and he's a co-host of Boston's biggest morning show. Great. But then we heard his story, and he was like some of our students. He had troubles as a youngster with drugs, with jail time, all that stuff. And in the story that was written for the alumni office, he credited Northern Essex with turning his life around, right? And he always had dreams of being a DJ on one of those stations in Boston. At the time, it was the hip hop station that he wanted to work on. So he gets his degree, then he transfers to a 4-year, gets his bachelor's degree, and from there, his career skyrocketed. We got him last spring to be our commencement speaker. It literally knocked everybody on their butts. That's how great the speech was. And from there, he's now becoming our spokesperson on iHeart in Boston.
Nice.
And we ran a series of last summer, fall, we ran a series of ads And the greatest story, and he told the story on air, and I almost drove off the road because I heard it live. And a woman, they do a call-in section in the morning, and this woman calls in to say, I was doing some chores around the house. I had the TV on in the background, and I hear this voice. I was like, I know this voice. Whose voice is this? And then she finally runs to the TV, and she sees the end of the commercial, and she sees our logo come up. But that clicked. It clicked for her, and she goes, "That's Justin, right?" So she calls in and tells the story, and hearing that, and just where you being able to have made all of those connections with the alumni office, with iHeart, with Justin, with the dean, to really connect all these stories and use that story in different ways to get an authentic, true story out into the world that can help students self-identify with Justin's story. They'd be like, okay, I thought my life was crap. I thought I was going to, be in this forever, but this is what Justin did.
That's awesome.
Right.
That's great.
I can do it too. And it was just talking with a great number of people throughout the campus community that made that happen. And it's established a great relationship with us going forward, not only with Justin, but with iHeart, right? It's it's building those relationships. It's, when you think of a community college and working with a major national media partner, you're like, no, we don't do that. But no, it's really easy. You just got to find your in.
So going back to that question, that was a long story. But
what was the question?
It's a beautiful story.
The question was, it is a great story. And we got to meet Justin at a District 1 conference in Boston, which
fantastic.
was amazing.
Yeah, he was great.
Yes, he was. But the question was, how can they be better partners to marketing, our different stakeholders and clients? And in addition to what you said about involving us earlier in the process is important, I also have 4 additional things. One is always share. Even if you don't have a project, always keep us top of mind. You come across an alumni story, you have an event coming up, you are doing a cool project. It doesn't mean we're going to be in a classroom taking photos of that particular project, but it's good for us to know, to identify those opportunities. So it's not a one-time thing. You should be in touch with us on a regular basis. The second one is be willing to explore different ideas and strategies. I know a lot of people come to us with preconceived ideas about what exactly they want to do. It could be a flyer, it could be a social media post. So I encourage you to be open to say, what else can we do? And listen to suggestions of your marketing team, because we are staying on top of the trends. We know what's working and what doesn't. So just being open. And the third one is being willing to contribute, because marketing is not something you just hand off to us and say, go and advertise my program or my initiative. We need to maybe leverage you in testimonials, maybe help you make a connection with an alumni, tell us more about the program and the careers and the outcomes. So be involved as much as you can, because content is so important to our promotional efforts. And if we can't get the content, we can really promote the program. So you, as a project manager, program director, is key to our promotional efforts, and your involvement is key. And the last thing is, marketing is everyone's job on campus, so it's not just our job. So try to be as informed about the college as you can, and be that ambassador, the brand ambassador in our community, to share the news, share what's happening, so we can educate more people indirectly.
Wow,
Not through marketing.
Drop the mic. That's an awesome
Seriously.
list. That I was going to just add, when you say, always share, bring us your best stories. I think Keith's example, that is a phenomenal story. And if somebody's hoarding that, like bring us your best stories. And then the willing to contribute, I think that's a big one for me, is bring your expertise and allow us to use our expertise. So that's where that willing to contribute and collaborate is, that you have a lot of knowledge and experience, and we do too. So let's put our heads together. But that's a great list, I would say.
Yeah. One thing I'd like to circle back on is outcomes
Mm-hmm.
is come to us with outcomes, either the ones that you have or the ones that you want, right? Because we can talk about both, uh, but it helps us frame things. One example from all of my higher ed jobs is around program marketing. Every program has the best faculty ever. That's not a talking point that I can use to sell our programs. Sorry, can't, because the community colleges, the other four-year colleges in our service territory say the exact same thing about their
Mm-hmm.
faculty. And it's true. All of us have amazing faculty. They're dedicated, they're passionate, they know their stuff, they love our students, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't help me rise above the fray. So how is your program different, better, unique? That's what I need to know.
Yeah, one of the things that
Mm-hmm.
we say internally, our team is we help communicate the awesomeness of the college. So
Ooh, I'm stealing that.
bring us awesome.
Yeah.
Don't bring us mediocre. I mean, if what you bring, if we look at it and go, well, to the general public, that's meh. Like that's not good enough. We need awesome.
Yeah.
But I would also say not everyone knows what awesome is. So I encourage you to bring us anything and we can help you figure out if it's awesome or not and if it deserves the attention.
That
Just
that's
get
fair.
used to get used to bringing us stuff.
That's
just
fair.
yeah, just
Bring us
bring us stuff.
everything. We'll
Yes.
tell you
Yes.
what's good and what's not. We'll just Keith will be blunt about it. Like, nope, nope, junk. Throwing that out. Nope,
No.
nope.
I always have a red pen. Always have a red pen.
Is there anything else that we didn't cover? I'm sure there's a lot of stuff we didn't cover, but anything burning that you really want to get out in this particular episode? We can always do a continuation, episode 4.1 or 2 or
Well, I hope listeners, they get a sense that the three of us are fun, right? And that's the first thing that I bring to my role here at the college. And I said this to my team just the other day in a team meeting. I was like, I spend a third of my life with you people. I want it to be fun. So, however we can affect that, make that happen, and spread that fun and that joy across campus, that is going to help. Like, marketing teams are uniquely positioned to be the fun people,
Yeah,
right?
here.
So it's how do we spread that and how do we help other folks? And we have our bad days. We all do. It's like, you get a ton of work to do or something bad happened on campus, whatever, that happens. But you can still have fun. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that I would share with folks is be able to have fun, right? Don't be stuffy. Don't be too hierarchical. Don't be, just have fun. It's, as much as we are changing lives for our students, we're also not curing cancer. So it's not that serious. I mean, it's serious, but it's not that serious. It's have fun.
Yeah, we enjoy the process. Our team actually developed values that we have as a team, which piggyback onto the college values, and fun is one of those values. Of course, creativity is. We're going to be as creative as we can be. Collaboration, I mentioned that before. We're going to want to collaborate. And then also impact. We want to make a difference. We want this to have a positive impact. So we're going to bring all that to the table. And I agree with you, Keith. We spend a lot of time doing this work and we ought to enjoy it.
Because it's fun.
It is fun.
Did I say fun?
It is fun.
well, this was the funnest conversation ever. So much fun. Thank you so much for taking the time again to talk to me and to help our listeners maybe get inspired or learn a couple of things. And let's continue collaborating and spreading the word about community colleges and helping our students change their lives.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Wonderful. Thank you.
And that's a wrap on today's episode. I hope you enjoyed listening to our discussion as much as we enjoyed recording it for you. And now let's do a little exercise to help you gauge where your college currently stands with its marketing efforts. So here's what I want you to do. Take a moment to reflect on these 4 questions and rate them on a scale from 1 to 5. Okay? So here's the first question. Does the role of marketing at your institution go beyond mere promotion, encompassing the entire student and stakeholder experience? Question number 2, are your marketing initiatives clearly aligned with your strategic plan and backed by clear KPIs? Third question, is the structure of your marketing function set up to support institutional priorities effectively? And the last question, Does your marketing department have adequate capacity to play the strategic role we discussed in this episode? So take a note of any areas where you feel your college could improve and where you're already excelling. And finally, brainstorm some actionable steps that can help you get closer to the ideal scenario. Remember, this exercise isn't about judgment, it's about self reflection and improvement. By assessing where you are now, you can identify opportunities for growth. So go ahead, give it a try, and let's see where you stand. Until next time. I hope you enjoyed this episode and found it valuable. Let's keep this conversation going on LinkedIn at Maya Demishkevich. I would love to hear your thoughts, questions, and suggestions for what you'd like to see next on this podcast. Remember, by tuning in to The Hidden Gem, you're not just listening to a podcast, you are joining a movement of amplifying community college success. Don't miss out. Subscribe to this podcast and notifications about our future episodes. Share it with your colleagues and college leaders to help make our colleges stand out. Together, let's make an impact. The Hidden Gem is part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you will like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher education technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our shows help higher ed marketers and admissions professionals find their next big idea and feature selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Jamie Hunt, Jenny Fowler, Eddie Francis, Brian Gross, and so many other of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.